And we are live on a Friday morning. Well, Friday morning for us in the USA, afternoon if you're in the UK. Welcome to the Mind Speak room where myself and my motley crew, who today I am joined by Tara Geraghty, Dawn Fraser, give a little wave in the house, and Dara Connolly. And today, our subject is, I'm going to put it in a banner so you can visually see it. It is how to navigate the world of corporate speaking and coaching, because I feel they go hand in hand. We had a conversation about this about 2 weeks ago. And it's just, there's so much to speak about with regards to those that want to speak in this arena, because it's most of us, I'm going to assert, it's most people I know who speak, they don't just speak. There's only a small percentage who go out and deliver at conferences and events. The majority of people have businesses, consulting, coaching. So it goes hand in hand. So before I kind of ask some questions for us to kind of dive into this, I want to say welcome to you watching, listening. And obviously you can put comments in. We're going live on LinkedIn.
No, Elaine, we have a thing from Monica. She said, "Good morning, ladies. Hope everyone's doing well. There is no audio."
Uh-oh.
That is very interesting.
Oh, no, I have it on my end, though.
Yeah, I can hear my voice, which I don't like hearing.
Oh, no, Monica. So, Monica, can you not hear us? I know this is a basic question, but something I feel like I would do. Is your volume up? I feel like I'd be sitting here being like, there's no audio. There's no audio. Everybody would be like, I'd be like, there's not. Oh.
Yeah, let me see. Can I hear myself on the computer?
Jessica just mentioned that she has audio.
Okay.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Jessica. Thank you for, so maybe, Monica, you have to jump out and then jump back in. Just a bit like Zoom, we go.
Yeah. And as you guys are popping in, comment, say hi. We see a lot of you joining. We're very glad that you're here. We want to be able to take questions. So we would love for you to just in the comments say hi and how you found us. We'd love to hear how you found us. Do you know somebody up here, or are you at a Lane groupie? Like, how did you find us?
Yeah. Hello, Lisa. And we definitely want you, Monica, because Monica's one of our regulars who's in attendance in this room. So let us know how the sound goes as well, Monica. So what was I saying? If you have any questions, obviously the questions have started about this subject matter, whether you have aspirations to speak in the corporate space. And obviously when we say corporate, we mean companies from small size. It doesn't have to be a Fortune 500 company, all the way through to associations as well. So ask any questions with regards to coaching. So I'm going to start off by asking anyone who's here in our group that has spoken at a company, we're going to call it company, and then went on to do some coaching. Has anyone had that? Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm just going to quickly jump off camera for a second, but Dawn, off you go.
Okay, great. So, hi everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you might be in the world. My name is Dawn Fraser, and as it relates to corporate speaking, it was one of those transitions that I actually made from college speaking and then to training. So I started off as one of those people who knew that there was opportunities to actually engage with other companies, other businesses, nonprofits. But for me, I was trying to figure out what is that way in, right? And I think that that's like a big question for like a lot of people, is like, how do you actually start off? For me personally, I'll just kind of share a little bit of my story. Is I was speaking. I was doing just different public speaking engagements, mostly around storytelling and leadership. For me, what ended up happening was I pitched a storytelling and leadership. It's a very small training under diversity, equity, and inclusion over at companies like Google. So some of these companies actually have like clearinghouses where they're looking for contractors. And so what I did was I submitted my name as a potential contractor to teach, professional development, leadership. And they brought me in for, a simple training. It was about 15 people, I want to say. And this was back in, I want to say 2019. So great timing, because in 2020, of course, the pandemic hit. They knew who I was because I had come in once before. And 2020 actually ended up being a year where I was able to bring in a lot more trainers to do a global training for Google and then some other companies. But it all kind of like started off first from that first step with getting in front of them somehow. And somehow for a lot of the people who I think will be here will be to do some type of speaking engagement, be it for free, be it for, just for publicity. But that's what worked on my end, was actually doing a speaking engagement, a very small one, which then led to the visibility I needed in order to land paid corporate gigs. And that's just one example.
Yeah, I would say I have a similar story as Dawn. Hi, I'm Dara. And when I first decided to become a speaker, because I was doing local engagements, it was January of 2020. And that kind of took me into consulting faster than I wanted it to. Because prior to that, for 20 years, I was working with high school girls, college girls. I would go to different schools. I did a lot with NCL, which is a national charity league. I'd go to their chapters and I'd give presentations and they would pay me, and it was great. And it was a really fun business, but I wanted to take it to the next level. So unfortunately, the pandemic kind of switched that around on me, and consulting ended up being a main way for me to sustain myself during the pandemic years. But the good thing is that consulting is a great way to build your business and get to know your clients one-on-one. And then from there, I was able to leverage into those organizations of the clients that I'm working with of, oh, why don't you come in and give this presentation to my women in leadership group? Or why don't you give a lunch and learn at my company? Or why don't I bring you in and talk to the HR person? So it was a great way, because everything we do in this business is who do you know, who's in your network, and how can you leverage yourself in? So as a speaker and consultant today, I'm able to do both, but you have to be flexible, right? Nobody anticipated the pandemic. We still never know what's coming on the radar in the future. But when you have both businesses set up, it's easy now to build both. And so I enjoy traveling. I have kids, so I don't go on speaking engagements every day. I try to maintain that with my family life, but then I'm able to do consulting when I'm home or on the road, and it helps supplement it. So I really like that schedule. That's a good balance for me, because if I just did one, I think I'd go a little crazy, to be honest with you. I need to multitask. That's what works for me.
Well, and I think too, and openly, I do coaching in my other business, so I don't really incorporate that into speaking. What I do know, though, and what I have definitely been trained in, is that speaking is a small part of most people's businesses. And when you do get a speaking gig, and they're paying you, that's because they like you. They think you are good. You are worth their money. That is the prime person to pay you again. Right. And so to have a menu of options of how can people work with you outside of this is that you have a work, so one thing I do is I have workbooks, and I have other, programs that they can purchase from me. Is it that I'm going to do a small coaching session? Is it that I can work with another division within your company? Is it that I can do a follow-up? Maybe you do a presentation and you're going to offer, hey, pay me to come back again in 6 weeks and I'll do a check-in and see how what I taught is going. Where can you go next? So you want to think of yourself as a menu. And there's the main course, but you've got all these side options, all these side dishes that you can offer. And this is how you create more income. And this is how you can also leverage a company that maybe doesn't have a whole lot to pay you just to come in to talk, but they've got budgets for other stuff that they can continue to pay you for, right? And now you're getting multiple streams of income from one engagement.
Oh, wow. We can see, different ways people got into this space. The menu. What is your menu? Because people do want to know what's next. What do you have to offer? I started off doing a free talk, and there was someone it was a graduation of a company, some people that've been on a program, and there was someone in the audience who recommended me to an event organizer who runs, I think they must run about 15 events every year in the UK. And so I went along to it, and I must admit the price was low. When the event where they saw me was free, and then when they offered me to speak at their event, and I don't know, people don't like talking about money. I'm fine about talking about money because it gives people a bit of a measurement of where did they start versus now. It's, if I don't say anything, it's just, did she start at 2000? I think it was like £650 sterling, but I took in consideration that I would be in front of not one company's employees, because they're very unlikely to book me if they work for the company. They were from all different companies. And so that meant that I had, usually I'd have in my session maybe about 100, 200 people. That meant I had 200 one-on-one conversations in essence, because you're just talking to one person. Now that would take us a whole year to have that many one-on-one conversations. So, and people would always come up afterwards and say, I'd love to have you to come and speak at our event or come and do a workshop. But I'd also, just like to share with people listening, for me, I always had the talks I was delivering was like the starter, as Tara said. And the main
course.
Yeah, main course. Thank you. Was the workshop itself. Like if I was back then, I was doing about presentation skills. So then I'd go and do a presentation skill workshop. So it gives people a little taster. So you don't always have to be, charging thousands of dollars to speak. You can just think, okay, who is that audience? And is it worth me giving my time? Because there's potentially work, what we call on the back end. Anyone want to expand on that? Anyone want to say anything with regards to that?
I think you said it perfectly. Yeah. Go ahead, Dawn.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that, like, it's, I'm just kind of like reflecting on this past year and some of the different ways that I was able to get more and more corporate speaking engagements. And, I know that Tara talked a little bit about this last week in terms of the actual ability to network, and like what exactly does that mean, and how does that look like? But I think that having those not only speaking engagements, but also just opportunities to just kind of present yourself to people and audiences where they might be hanging out or looking for professional development training themselves. I think that a lot of being able to get in front of the right people is actually finding those spaces where they might be it on a stage, or be it at like a networking event, or be it at just academic based conferences. I think that people could really tap into their networks, especially now that we're out of the pandemic and we actually do have the opportunity to meet people in different ways. But I just wanted to build upon that, but I also think that just like letting people know who you are in the right spaces and taking some time to intentionally figure out where can I network if it's not going to be on a stage, because you're not going to have speaking engagements on a daily basis. So where are those other places, be it online or be it in the real world? So I just wanted to and that with networking options.
And let me just jump in quickly. I think it's important to also be flexible. Like a lot of my clients say, I want to be a keynote speaker. I want to be a motivational speaker. Well, what about starting with a training or offering a workshop or doing a breakout session? Because sometimes it may look different than what you think it's going to be. And if you're flexible and you can have those conversations and get the meeting planners interested in you, then we can get to the keynote. But we don't often start at that. So I think it's important to keep an open mind, be open. What are you willing to do to get on the stage?
It's interesting when I realized there was a professional speaking world, which I always share with you guys. This was an eye opener to me after getting voted most talkative in my high school class, that people would pay me to talk instead of my teachers telling me to stop talking. Right. So when I first found that out, I got such conflicting advice. I had people on one end saying, if you want to be a professional speaker, you make that decision and you never talk for free again, because that lowers your value and then you're not really a paid professional speaker. I had other people saying, well, you just go talk wherever you can get, right? And so it was really difficult to navigate. And I would say I got that from both ends of people who were professional speakers who had been successful, right? And so I was very lucky. I had an amazing speaker, Michael Crossland out of Australia, high paid professional speaker. He basically shared with me that the way he broke into getting paid, like, 5-figure speaking, was that he spoke somewhere for free. And somebody saw him there and was so impressed and was part of a conference and said, hey, we need this guy to be our speaker. And they were like, no, we've never heard of him. He's a nobody. And because he was a sponsor, he said, I'll pull my sponsorship if you don't somehow get this guy on stage.
Wow.
And what was interesting is he has such a fabulous story, and he's a beautiful human, is that he had been trying to get into speaker bureaus. And so again, this goes back to what Don's talking about, like networking. He was trying to get into speaker bureaus and just getting turned down left and right. And you have to kind of think about it. If you equate speaking to other professions, it would be like, I'm going to show up and play for the major leagues and just get me in. I'm going to show up and audition for the NFL. And they're like, buddy, who are you? We have no idea who you are, right? So he's trying to get in these speaker bureaus and they're telling him you're a nobody. He goes and does this speech. And they say, well, we're not going to be the keynote. We'll let him go before the keynote. The keynote was a big name. After his speech, everybody left for the final keynote and went to go see him outside. They wanted to go talk to him. The keynote was left with nobody there. And in the group of people was the guy at the speaker bureau who had told him, you're a nobody, we're not going to hire you. And now Michael's like, he's standing there being like, I represent him. I represent him. I represent him. And the keynote later said, I will never speak after Michael Crossland again. And that was put in, right? So when Don talks about networking, most people don't know how to network. And I see this all the time. They go in and they say, hey, Darren, so, hey, by the way, Tara, do you have any, do you ever use speakers at your company? Do you need a speaker for your company? That is the equivalent of saying, I'm a realtor. You know anybody who needs to sell a house? You're like, I don't know. They probably already have a realtor.
Totally.
You need to know how to pitch yourself. You need to walk in and say, Dara, do you know anybody who has a company that teaches sales, that needs somebody to come in and teach sales? Do you know anybody who has a company that needs to teach culture, and maybe their company is struggling with some culture dynamic, and I come in and I can teach this? You are not a speaker. You are, what do? You lead with that. So if I'm a realtor and I say, I'm looking for people who are their first time home buyers, they just got married, they're looking to buy a house, instantly I start thinking about, who do I know that is newly married? When you go with speaking, you go the same way. This is what I can offer. Do you know anybody who knows me to offer this? If you just go and say, hey, it's so nice to meet you. So I'm a speaker. Do you know anybody who's looking for speakers? They're like, no, I don't know anybody. But if you go in very clear, I teach resiliency and I work with companies who have a sales force that is struggling and they're getting very emotional in their outcomes. And I'm looking where I can go in and train them on how to work numbers and get higher results for a bigger return. Now you know exactly what I'm going to teach on, right? So I think we can do a whole session about networking, because I think all of us talk about how most of our first paid stuff was through people that we knew. And speaking, and I think almost did all of you guys at least talk for free at some point? Like I feel like that's how I
still do. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if it's going to be the right audience with like people who can buy on the back end and inside of it, absolutely.
I thought the advice of you never talk for free ever again once you're paid was not strong advice, because there's so many other ways that you can leverage speaking for free. Like, I don't think there's a black and white. I've just learned that each situation is different. But I've also seen the other extreme, and I would love to hear from you guys about this. I think sometimes when we start speaking for free so much, it's difficult to transition then into getting paid, because people just assume, well, she speaks for free. And having that conversation of like, oh, but now you need to pay me, right? So maybe we can talk about how do you transition to that? What does that look like?
Totally. Totally.
Yeah. So I feel like we've covered quite a few things, in terms of networking, which Dawn has started, visibility. People need to, at least if someone doesn't know you, then they kind of need to be able to find you somewhere online. Tara's been talking about the pitching, how do you pitch yourself? And, we're talking about free or not. So in our sort of 40 minutes remaining, I would love for us to kind of walk someone through, how do you get into corporate and paid speaking? Because we can give people lots of different bits and they're going to try and grab, but if we can give them like a recipe, a step by step by step, then whoever's listening, it's going to be easier for them to take this away and implement it. So, and then I like, a few of you can share, and then we're going to move on to the next part. So what would you say is the first step? I.e., is it just going on LinkedIn and seeing who's in your database and pitching to them? Is sometimes networking events, it's hard to get to. What would you say is the first step for someone interested in delivering corporate, and what comes out of it is, coaching as well? Who wants to take that on?
I'll jump in with some thoughts.
Yeah, go for it.
So in my opinion, that very, very first step really kind of depends on what kind of speaker or what kind of person you are in terms of your brand. So for example, like I love podcasts, and I'm big into podcasting. Other people are big into writing. Some people are, actually just big into like communicating. But I think actually the very, very first step, communicating, I mean like on stages. But I think that the very first step is actually deciding which platform you're going to use to start to amplify and to share your brand. For a writer, that might be Substack. For professionals, that might be LinkedIn, or professionals who are like, on audio or media. Others people, that might be a podcast. But I think that the very, very first thing to establish is what is going to be your primary platform to kind of get your own visibility out there. And that platform can be like anything, as I just mentioned. If it were me, I would probably start with something like LinkedIn. And so after figuring out what your platform is, you have to actually, in my opinion, start to like publicly put yourself out there in some type of visible way. So I would either start hosting either a room like similar to this one, possibly like helps with visibility, right? Doing, learning from the one and only Elaine Powell. Or I would create like an event. Like what I did was I like live events. I'm a storyteller. So I hosted a live event that I put together. It was my platform. People could come to that show. It's called Barbershop Stories. And from there, I think it's important to do like a kick-ass job. I think what Tara was mentioning earlier in terms of it like really looking like, like you want to be paid $1 billion, look like $1 billion, even if this is your platform, you're doing it for free. And so like, do like your best presentations, get your audience engaged. Little by little, you'll notice that like people like agents or people who are interested in hiring you might be in the audience. They might not ever say anything. They might not engage with your tweets. They may not like actually like, like put anything on your LinkedIn. But if they see that you're doing an excellent job and they're really interested, they are going to start to engage with you and follow up more. So in my opinion, figure out what platform you first want to use, where you best can articulate your message and your value to the world. Put that in start getting some type of cadence to get that out there. And then little by little, I think that it actually helps to just create your visibility, to actually start to get out there to let people know what you do and how you can serve them.
Yeah, that's such a great point about visibility and finding your platform. Even though I'm, a seasoned speaker, I still have this reluctance. It's a resistance to put myself out there on LinkedIn in videos consistently. And I'm still in that inquiry of why am I resistant to do these videos? I'm using all excuses. I haven't got enough time. I've got something else I have to do. And as a speaker, speakers speak. And the more you speak, the more you'll speak. And speaking doesn't necessarily have to be on the stage. It can be on a podcast, as Monica said. You know, she's done podcasting. It can be on LinkedIn. This is a LinkedIn Live. So I think just being really visible is one of the first key things. And if you have aspirations of being a speaker, put it in your profile. I know it sounds really like it sounds very obvious, but I don't know how many people I go to their profile and there's no sign that they're a speaker. Well, why would anyone book you if you're not even saying speaker? So that's a really, really simple.
You're like an undercover speaker.
So really,
don't make it a secret.
Yeah, so we've got visibility. I don't know if anybody wants to, expand on that, or someone then wants to move on to what they've considered would be the next step. You're becoming a lot more visible. You know, what next? Anyone want to expand on visibility?
I do think this is where personality style is important. So when you're networking, regardless of what your business is, you need to know what you enjoy. You will get better results from doing things that you enjoy, that light you up, that bring you joy, right? So I'm a very in-person. I really need to connect. My best place to get connection, if I'm just focusing on corporate speaking openly, is to go join the chamber in my town. Is to start showing up at chamber events. It's to start getting people to know me. It's to build relationships with me, find out about their companies, find out about what their companies need, and start to pitch. And I hate that word pitch, but start to ask those people, hey, have you ever considered bringing somebody in who does this? Do you guys have a budget for speakers? Have you ever worked with a speaker? Do you do workshops? It's looking through your community and finding out what this is how I got started. I looked through my community and I figured out who was speaking in my community, where were they speaking, and who was paying them. Right? Because they're probably not going to hire the same person every year for every conference. I still do this. If I see somebody that I know, we talk on something similar and they're posting, because what happens when people get booked to speak, they share it with everybody, right? So if I see somebody on Instagram who's like, hey, I'm speaking at so-and-so, there may be some pictures screenshotted of Dawn on my phone. No, there aren't, but do you know what I mean? Like, oh, there, somebody was willing to pay her. They might be willing to pay me. If you don't like that, if you're an introvert and the idea of going and talking at a chamber makes you feel like I just got nauseous and now maybe I don't want to be a speaker, then maybe you are the blogger, right? If you love to write, but if you hate to write, then don't feel like, oh, I have to do a blog to become a speaker. You have to figure out what you enjoy, run on that track, and find your people from there, because all of us are different. And if you try to keep pushing and connecting and networking in a way that is not aligned with you, it'll become a self-fulfilling prophecy because you won't get anything from it. And you'll go, see, this doesn't work, right?
That's so true, because I am the introvert, Tara. And to me, networking would get exhausting. So you can go in person, or what I tell my clients to do is make a list of the top 25 companies or organizations you want to work at, and your dream list, right? And then start scouring your LinkedIn and your personal networks of who do you know has worked there, who has a connection, and decide how likely is this person going to help you, like rate them from 1 to 10, because these are the people you want to start reconnecting with. Don't flat out ask them, hey, do you have a speaking opportunity for me? We don't start with that. We got to rebuild the connections. May take some time, but it's investing in it. And that's how you can do it behind the scenes. If those networking events are like, I mean, I do go. If I did it every day, it would make me a little insane. Yeah. So, but we have to do, like you said, what works for you. So find the right tip, and maybe you can mix in a little bit of both. I mean, go to the networking event, do the list, do what Dawn said, right? When we put this together, you have to have a strategy. That's the point. If you don't have a strategy, you won't get it done, because you wake up and you look at your computer and you're like, what should I work on today? Oh, I'll check email. And before you know it, you're just wasting the day. But if you have a strategy and you know what you're going to get done today, maybe I'll pick up the phone and call this organization, or I'll go to a networking event, or I'll reach out on LinkedIn who is available in my network that I can have a conversation with. When you can get at least 3 things done in a day, that's productive. So we want to start doing something is the point.
Yeah, fabulous. So we have the create your dream list, or go to LinkedIn, look at your warm list. Obviously you can download your contacts and spend some time, finding who is that organization, is someone in your LinkedIn list part on your dream list, and just start building that relationship, because it is all relationship building. I think most business is relationship building, and start having those conversations with people. I think also what helps, especially if you're at the Chamber of Commerce or you're pitching, is you have to understand what you are pitching. And I do want to, once again, let me just stop, put a pause right now and say welcome to you. If you are watching, we're on multiple platforms. So welcome, whatever platform you're listening from. And if you do have a question, please type it in the chat box. If you're on Facebook, you can type it there, or in LinkedIn. Just type that and we will answer that question, so we can move you forward and you're not stuck, because we want more people out there speaking, sharing your truth, being self-expressed. So what would someone pitch? I have like little templates. I think the challenge for many people wanting to speak, not just in the corporate space, is not really understanding what the problem is that they serve, but also what is the main problem of their target audience. So for myself, I know that one of the main problems I serve is that people are stuck. They're dealing with challenges in the organization. People aren't performing as well as they know they could do, because they track the performance. And so I come in with my thinking methodologies, and we have a conversation about challenges they're dealing with. And I share a methodology that helps them work through that challenge in the actual session itself. So people come away with the transformation. So, when I pitch it, I support organizations and their employees who are dealing with challenges, and I implement the thinking discipline that will help them elevate their performance, productivity, and profits. So that's just kind of a little bit of a pitch, but you have to have an idea, what is the problem that people are dealing with? If someone's a branding company, I wouldn't know what their problem is, but you have to understand. So who wants to deal with a little bit about how you'd pitch? And I know Tara did start off earlier, gave us a great little kind of lesson on that. Who wants to expand?
Well, I do a very quick pitch, and because I feel like people are so inundated today, you send a long email, they're not going to read it. So I even at one point when I was pitching television did a 4-sentence pitch, and I think this is really effective if you want people to read your emails and open your emails. The title of the subject was World's Smallest Pitch. So what I start with is a hook. Maybe it's a question. Is your organization struggling with people speaking up at meetings, right? Because I help people speak with impact. Or did you know that when business professionals speak with impact on stage, they're more likely to impact their audience? Just a question or some fact or something relevant. You can make this one sentence and then talk about why this is important today. Something that's going on maybe in their organization. You can do a little bit of research, or something that's happening globally, right? We need to learn how to speak. We're not communicating. Everybody's on their phone. We've forgotten the art of communication. Then the third sentence is who you are. You want to list your top 3 credentials. Maybe you've done 50 amazing things in your life. We don't want to list them all. Maybe you're an author, you're a speaker, and you're a consultant, or you have a PhD, or you've been in business for 20 years. Pick top 3 things and say who you are. You can mention if you're local, because that's important. They'll want to bring in a local speaker if you are. So you say, I'm Dara Connolly, local to the Bay Area, speaker, author, I would say TEDx speaker, author, and consultant who's worked with individuals for over 20 years. Then the last sentence is the call to action. Can we set up a meeting at Tuesday at 11 a.m. or can I come in, or when would be a good time to chat with you? If you can keep it simple, it will get more results. So we start with the hook, something interesting to get their interest. We mention why this topic, your topic, is relevant today. What's going on? Why do we need this? What's the problem that you're solving? Then who you are, just a little blurb of what's so amazing about you, why we need to hear this from you and not from the other Joe Schmo down the road who talks on the topic, and then a call to action. And that's usually how I pitch. And it's very effective if you follow that formula.
Thank you, Dara. Anyone else want to share around the pitching? Hello, Dr. Michelle as well. Welcome to the group. Another one of our fabulous moderators.
Hi, everyone.
Yeah, we're the subject of our room today is how to navigate the world of corporate speaking and coaching, because coaching usually will come out of the speaking, and we're kind of going through a step by step. What are the steps we would suggest they do in order to start to speak in those spaces? So we've started with visibility and finding your platform and start to become more visible. We've had networking, go into the Chamber of Commerce. Now we're talking more about how do you pitch yourself, which I think that's where people get a bit stuck. They're like, I don't know what to say if I speak to somebody. And so Dara's just shared one of her formulas for pitching yourself. There's lots of different formulas out there. Anything you want to say about the networking aspect of how do you introduce yourself, or what? Yeah, I'll leave it over to you.
So I love what Dara said about pitching yourself. I always like to step back and say a lot of times speakers are multi-passionate. And when you hear an organization, they say, I do this, how I can speak to that, right? Like, so you feel like you can speak to everything. And so your introduction gets very muddled and you don't know which of the things that you've done in your past to introduce yourself with. So what I recommend is, for a particular event, if you're going to a sales event, and you have a sales talk, always introduce yourself in that way. So for instance, I talk on negotiation and I talk on leadership. But at any particular event, I decide which one I'm going to go with, which and how I'm going to introduce myself. So I'm not going back and forth, and it's very confusing to the people that you introduce yourself to. And then you can also say, if they say, oh, well, we're really struggling with leadership, I always pitch them then, oh, I do that also. Why don't we set up a call? So that way they know, kind of who you are and what your primary keynotes is. It's kind of like having the speaker one sheet, which I know some people in the audience are familiar with, that tells you kind of who you are and what your keynote speakers talks are. And I have two. I have a separate one for negotiation than I do for leadership. Because organizations that want one don't always want the other. I don't know what other people think about that, is kind of having a consistent pitch for a consistent audience, for a specific audience.
I think that it kind of like builds from what Tara was saying, because, I was reflecting back on before I actually was able to get paid speaking engagements and get paid coaching engagements. And one of the things that worked for me in hindsight was, so Tara mentioned, for example, the Chamber of Commerce in your local city. One of the places where I realized I could speak at was the Small Business Association. They had they kind of have like different programs, like free programs for other people who are small business owners who are looking to step into, like what are all the tasks needed if you're an entrepreneur. And I took one of their classes because I was, stepping into like opening up my LLC. But then I realized that a lot of people who are entrepreneurs probably would also need to articulate what their brand is, what their brand story is. So what I did was I went to them and I said, I know that I'm a student taking, these free classes with you all, but can I offer just like a session, like a 1.5 hour session on, excuse me, on storytelling techniques that might be able to help out, this exact same population. And they're like, yeah, absolutely. And what that helped, that was the very, very first gig. But what that helped me do, was unpaid because I volunteered myself. But what it did do was it did help me figure out what exactly is going to be on that one pager. How am I going to articulate that? How am I going to pitch that to other people? So I kind of used something as like low-hanging fruit, as like a litmus test to see like, was the language working? Was what I was talking about going to be in like more demand once I did it? So I think that kind of combining these strategies of actually like looking at, where those places, be it like a Rotary Club. Rotary Clubs are always like looking for, for speakers to come in, your Chamber of Commerce. Sometimes that might be like your local high school or junior high, because a lot of times these teachers are looking for professionals to talk about what career are you in. Like there's a lot of like low hanging fruit that are like within a 50-mile radius from where a lot of people live, and use that to like first try out both how you're articulating your offer as well as actually doing it. And I think that kind of combines two of those steps to kind of get you like secure in that next step of actually being able to process and pitch it even more and better.
Yeah, I love that, Dawn. I love how you're building on Tara. And I think I would just love to add another piece of, depending on what your talk is, pay attention to the calendar. Like I do a lot of talking around women in leadership. So I pay attention to Women's History Month, right? So I've recorded podcasts about women in leadership, and I started recording them in December. So that's actually when you do the guest spots, and people are going to release something in March. So you've got to, if you have a topic that is particularly timely for Black History Month, Women's History Month, Latino History Month, that you back up 3 or 4 months and start pitching it then, because that's when people really are booking the speakers and recording the podcasts.
Oh, 100%. I have a friend who just speaks just during Black History Month, which is now. So happy Black History Month to anybody who might be out there, regardless of your Black, white, Asian, Latinx. Happy Black History Month to everybody, but mostly to us. Mostly us. Just kidding. But anyways, I have a friend. I have a friend who started pitching Black History Month stuff back in like November, and he is booked like this entire month. He's making over 60,000 from just like going from like colleges to college to college. I have other people who started doing this for Women's History Month, which is March. So yeah, that strategy of like looking at the calendar is like gem. It's a gem.
Brilliant. Yeah. I feel like you could have showed up today, just heard that, and you got a gem for that. The other thing, building on Dawn, what you had shared about the low hanging fruit, one thing to make sure you're grabbing when you grab that low hanging fruit is a reference. If you speak somewhere that you are always asking that person in a follow-up email, thank you so much for having me come in to speak. I would love to hear feedback from your event. And if you're comfortable writing me a letter of reference, and who else do you know that I should be connecting with? This is very important, where I think a lot of people drop the ball. This all goes back to the networking, right? Because I might not be the best speaker, but I am like business. I get business and I know how to market, right? And so if I grab that little blueberry, I am going to turn it into a papaya and a watermelon. So what is the next? Utilize, you speak for free, you speak at your chamber. You might think that's not a big deal, but then when you want to pitch that big guy, you've got a nice stack of, here's 10 places I spoke and they're raving about me. And I'm going to send that in with my speaker one pitch. Particularly if you don't have, Elena shared last time about having, what separates a top speaker is the website and maybe some of these other assets. And you may not have those yet. But a packet of 10 great references of this person came in, they spoke, they brought value, that will go a long way. Third party impact.
Yeah, look, some great points here as well. And remember, in terms of the space, we've got associations as well, and there's thousands and thousands of associations, and for many people they're actually an easiest step into what we think of like the corporates, the BP and the brands, the Nikes. They may come at some point because someone who knows somebody, but you can start with smaller events like the Rotary Chamber of Commerce. And from what I'm hearing from our conversation today, it really is all about relationships. It's about having conversations. Right. Yes, there's things that would really support you to put in place in terms of your visibility, websites and photos and testimonials, but having conversations and be really strategic. And like I have it in my diary, and I always call it a diary, my calendar, every day to pitch for one speaking engagement, but I also block out every other day to spend 2-3 hours in the in the world of speaking. Majority of us, it's mostly what I do full time, along with coaching people to be TEDx speakers, but then 20% speaking, and the 80% is research. It's having conversations, it's jumping on calls with people. So we have one question that I'd like us to answer, and then I want us to sort of lean into, in the last sort of 8 minutes or so, lean into what happens when you have those conversations. How do you what are the questions that you might have to ask an event organizer so that you can be the one who they say yes to and you can close that deal? Who would like to? I'm going to read the question, and then maybe one or two of you could support Monica. Monica, thank you for the question. Says, my message is to educate on the relationship between DEIB, emotional intelligence, and empathy. Thoughts on how to host a LinkedIn room, which is what we're doing now. Who would like to support Monica? Anyone want to join in?
So I would probably, it's kind of interesting. The topic is really interesting. And right now there's a lot of pushback on DEIB and a lot of states, legislatures, and a lot of companies. So I think that link to emotional intelligence is going to be really key. And you can think of empathy as a part of emotional intelligence. So I might lead off with, kind of emotional intelligence, key to work engagement, and then why this is important for DEIB, why this also promotes inclusive and equitable workplaces. So depending on what area you're in, like if you're in Florida, lead off with the emotional intelligence. If you're in the Northeast, you can lead off with the DEIB. So, you really got to figure out who your audience is and what will play in that corporation, because the connection is really important, but figuring what's ground is going to depend on your location.
Great. And obviously you've touched on what's relevant now, what's happening in the space right now that we all need to be aware of. That's great advice. Anyone else want to contribute?
I do think if you're going to host an event, any event, LinkedIn or anything, you need to know where you're leading people. And I think having a great offer, we do this in ours. So I know Aline will be sharing this with you. But we offer resources. So if you're going to host an event, again, this kind of goes back to the business side, right? Don't expect that people are just going to reach out to you. You need to follow up and reach out with those people. So if you invest, let's say, an hour in hosting an event, you need to have an hour in your calendar to follow up from that event, any event that you're doing. So let's say you do a LinkedIn event, you want to look at who commented, who came in, who said hi, who liked, individually reach out to those people with some kind of an offer that would then capture an email address or connect them into your group or your Facebook group or wherever you lead people so that you keep that connection. Okay. So that would probably, then that's just for LinkedIn, but I know that's something that we do. And I will pitch you now. We've got a bunch of free resources. So if you are like, I want to get paid as a speaker, I want to learn more how to do this. Each of us has gifted our community something different. And so if you click on this link and you go to the MindSpeak UK resources _ LinkedIn, you're going to see all of these different great offers, right? And it's a way for you to get a taste of what we do and to see, do you like us? Do you want to stay connected with us? It's a menu. If you do, great. If you don't, that's okay. But that's really, we want you to take advantage of our resources, and then we want you to create your own to go out and use.
Fabulous. Thank you.
And Lori loves your website, Aline.
Thank you, Laurie. Appreciate that. And great advice as well, Tara, to Monica. We've been doing this room. We went from Clubhouse to LinkedIn. We went from LinkedIn audio to StreamYard, and we're still tweaking and still measuring which one is more effective for the audience, because that's speaking. It's all about the audience. It's about you listening. It's not about us sharing so much. It's about what are you hearing for you? We are here to serve you. And so we might go back to audio if we feel that that's actually going to serve our audience a lot more. So it's like business, Monica. You try, you test things out. Does that work? Does that not work? You measure things. And it's just testing it out. There's no right and wrong. It's like, that worked, that didn't work. What's next? And it's the same with speaking, as far as I'm concerned. That worked in my presentation. That didn't work. So what do I need to put in place for the next time and the next time? But thank you for the question, Monica. Always love your contribution. We're not hearing your voice, so maybe audio next time. We'll see. Watch this space. So in our last 8 minutes, I would love to ask my moderators about you've been able to have... Go on.
I think Dara's back. I think she's accidentally popped off.
But I can't see the bottom of my screen to add people in. So thank you very much.
There she is.
Yeah,
Thank you.
So in our remaining minutes, we want to look at, I think we've made the point, you have to be having conversations. And it's in those conversations, you're going to see what works with your pitch, what doesn't work. Surround yourself with other speakers. Because when I'm with the speakers of the National Speakers Association and people introduce themselves, I'm always listening. How do they introduce themselves? Especially the people who are like the 20, the 30K speakers. They've been in the industry such a long time. And then one question they always ask is, so what do you speak on? And so you want to have that down that is really tight. I don't feel sometimes mine's as tight as I wanted to. So just being in this meeting has made me go, no, Elaine, get back to practicing your pitch about, a very simple pitch outline is, who do you support? Who do you serve? I don't like the word help, but who do you serve? Who do you support? What do you help them do? Is there something you help them avoid? So put a pain in there, because that's what people are listening out for. Oh, I help avoid, burnout or, sickness or loss of earnings, whatever it might be. And ultimately, what do you help them do? So that's a really quick pitch in terms of what do you speak on, so you can practice that. So you've done that and someone says, oh, that's great. I would love to jump. Well, sometimes people will email you, which I've had last week, and they said, we've come across your profile. They looked at my website because it came via my website. We'd love you to potentially speak at our event. Can you tell us your availability and what's your fee? And I will never send my fee via email. This is a conversation that needs to be had, and there's questions that I have to ask in order to fully understand, am I the right person to serve this audience? Because it is always about the audience. I'm not going to be a round peg trying to put myself into a square hole. It's not my topic. They're there for a different reason than what I feel I can serve them. Is there somebody else I think would actually support them, which has happened before, and I've recommended other people. But jumping on that call, what would be your advice with regards to how do you deal with being on the call with an event organizer? Jumping. I can.
Well, that's a great call to be on.
Yeah. So, I can share a few things. Go on, Tara.
Yeah, I was going to say, Michelle's like our negotiator, so I'm just sitting here. I want to hear what she's going to say.
Well, that's definitely going to come in when they ask about the what's your fee, how much.
I know what I do, but
I always come back with what's your budget.
See, I don't.
Because you don't know what their budget is. So sometimes, they'll come back. Your plan. So you might be planning to ask for, say, $5,000, and when they come back, they say, "Oh, well, our budget is $10,000." Then you know what they're expecting you to ask, right? Like if you don't know what the budget is, and you also, it helps if the budget's too small, right? Because then you can just come back and say, you don't have to turn them down. You can just say, this probably isn't a good fit for $1,000. This is what I could do. right? Which might be a virtual virtual Q&A or something like that, or be part of a panel versus, doing a keynote. So it gives you an idea of, or what I usually offer, if their budget is really small, I just, I let them know that I do 2 pro bono talks a year. And so if they get on the wait list for that, I will definitely, I would definitely like to serve their community, but clearly they don't have the budget.
Yeah. So I think that's one strategy, because I don't.
And sometimes they come up with a budget, right? Like,
yeah.
if, and I also ask them, well, is there another organization in your community that might be interested in this type of talk? Because if I can do 2 talks, right? And if I can fly out there and I can do 2 talks, you could partner with another organization to come up with the appropriate budget. And I would love to do that. So there's lots of ways to figure out, what their budget is. And it may be that we have this budget for speaking, but you have a budget for materials, right? Because I always have a workbook or something that goes along with the talk, which if the speaking fee is high enough, I include that for free. But if they don't have that speaking fee, they might have that fee to pay for the supplementary materials, or if you have a book or something like that. Also, it might be that they want to record this talk. So I have a very different price for recording than I do for just the live talk that's not recorded. So if the budget is low, I do not allow recording.
Yeah.
So there's just a lot of different movable pieces in there. And I know Tara.
I have a question for Michelle, because I got this for the first time and I was like, okay, I'm so prepared. I've been coached by you guys, what's your budget? And she comes back with, well, we've never paid a speaker before. This would be our first time, so we're not really sure. What do you charge?
Exactly.
Now, what would you? And I was like, do I call Alex? Do I call Michelle? I need to get somebody on the phone.
Has that happened already? Has that happened? Did it happen?
So it did. So the speaking engagements in May, and actually, guys, what ended up happening was they paid me 10 times what I would have done it for.
Awesome.
Yeah, I was actually so excited. I was like,
know the bargaining range,
right?
Yeah.
But I really didn't know. I will tell you, I really didn't know how to respond, because they weren't even giving me they were really like, we've always used free speakers. But this goes back to what we've been talking with you guys. This organization said we've always used free speakers. However, you've been so highly recommended to us, and we know you're a paid speaker. So we're trying to figure out how to pay you if you can come in. So now, of course, I have so much pressure for this event, because I'm like, well, they've never paid anybody before. I want them to be like, that was worth it. They really had, she was like, I have no idea. We don't even know, like, what
and
would
then,
you charge?
Yeah. And that is a great problem to have. And then you come back, you don't necessarily have to come back with your fee. You can come back with paid speakers for this size organization typically get between X and Y. And the X is and the low range is what you really is your ideal pie in the sky. Is something that you can do also. But what you did is make them bargain against themselves. So they came back with a price, which is the best of the best.
I think it's sometimes hard because of what Elaine said in the beginning. And I find this still, people don't like to talk about what they're paid. And so when you're trying to get into a paid speaking thing, you don't really know what other people are getting paid or what they have charged for this or anything. And so, yeah, I was like, oh, I don't even know what somebody else would charge.
I can tell you there's a way to do it. Not always, you can't always do it. But if you're looking to speak at an event and it's, they've had it for the past couple of years, what you do is you go and have a look and you look at the speakers they had the previous couple of years. And then you start Googling those speakers. And then you'll start to see, are they in a speaker bureau? Because if they're in a speaker bureau, usually there's a price attached to it. So put that person's name and Google speaker fee and see what comes up, because maybe they spoke about it, in an article somewhere, and their fee will come up. So that's one way that you can find out how much they charged or how much they paid to other speakers.
Brilliant.
I'm kind of the opposite of Dr. Michelle. So I think there's no hard and fast rule. There's not a should. Sometimes you can ask people's budget, but sometimes people will say a lower because they want to hold on to their money.
You have to assume they're saying lower.
Yeah,
always assume they're
my
saying lower.
fee is my fee. So they will always ask me, so what's your fee? And I'll say my fee, and I'll shut up. And then I'll see what they say. And they go, okay. Some will say, perfect, blah, blah, blah. Some will say, okay, well, we're going to have to come back to you, blah, blah, blah. And then I'll ask, oh, so what's your budget? Because I know a lot of times when I ask people, when I used to ask people, what's your budget? They used to skirt around it. Not many people would come back and actually tell me what the budget was. So I think you also have that pushback that sometimes people don't want to tell you their budget. You know,
right.
I will then, if the budget is lower than what my fee, then I'll see, okay, what's the gap? Is there something I can offer you? Is there coaching? Is there, a mastermind extra that will bring it back up to my fee? Because, my fee is that fee for the day. So do you want me to be on a panel? Do you want me to, stay afterwards and have dinner with the delegates? So I feel like
I just want to put a pin in that.
Yeah.
Her
and I've just realized,
not for the talk.
1 second.
Having a fee for the day is really
Michelle,
critical.
hold on 1 second. I'm just acknowledging we have gone past our usual hour on the top of the hour. So I just want to make sure that my moderators are okay to stay on until 5 past. Yeah. Sure. Okay, great. Carry on, Dr. Michelle.
I was just saying, I just wanted to put a pin in what you said, is that the fee is for the day. And so when you charge for the day versus for the 45 minutes, or you charge by the half a day, then that's your fee. And you can add another workshop or a panel, or have a Q&A with people, or, which is a very good way to do it, because then you don't have to move down. You're like, well, sorry, I don't speak. Because then they'll ask you, what if you just want to speak for 45 minutes? Like, I don't do that, right? You can have a half day, you can have a whole day. That's it. And it really helps them kind of understand, because a lot of times they really do want you for a half day, right? They're really expecting you to stay for the cocktail hour, or they're expecting you to stay for the lunch, and they expect you to, and they're kind of, it's on your own time then if you don't build it in. The other thing that when Tara and when you mentioned, looking up the Speaker Bureau, I just want to get on my soapbox and say, we as speakers, especially as female speakers, we need to share our fees. I know I have a group of speakers that I'm with, and we made a spreadsheet, and everyone put in their fees, and they put in things like, do they have a book? Don't they have a book? Different kinds of credentials, so we could start of understanding that. And then we put in what we had known from male speakers to kind of see that, like, even our top rate was underneath what men with much less experience were charging. So you've got to really know. And sometimes, when you're talking to men, if they or even just very famous women who don't want to share the price, just say, this is the talk I'm going to do, this is the organization, this is what I'm going to charge. Does that sound right? And they'll be like, no, that's way too low. Right? Like, so then so maybe they won't tell you exactly what they charge, but they will give you feedback on what you were planning to charge, which gives you information.
That's brilliant, Michelle. I love that. I learned so much from you guys. One thought I had, and I did not say this, but now I'm thinking I might say this in the future. So if you said I didn't have a budget, or I haven't planned for that, or I haven't had what Elaine has had yet, where people refuse to give you their budget. So I was thinking, well, what would I do in that situation? Because I haven't had that. I probably would come back with, okay, so tell me, what does this feel like this would be worth to your organization?
Yeah, that's a good question.
What would this transformation be worth? Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. So if I come in and I do this, and this is what your organization gets from it, how much is that worth to your organization?
And because we've kind of jumped to like what happens usually at the end of the call, we haven't dealt with the beginning bit of the call, which is the questions that you ask, so you can really understand what the problem is, and for them to see and to remember and to be aware of, this is your problem. And this is why you're bringing me in. And this is why my value, then you can really share the value of what is it that you offer that's going to make a difference, that's going to be the transformation, because that's what they're paying for. They're paying for a solution to their problem, but you can't offer that unless you really understand what their problem is. And so
don't talk money until you talked about the transformation, because their job is to get to the number and your job is to postpone that number until you prove that you can offer a transformation.
Yeah, definitely.
So I hear
important.
part 3 coming up. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think we have to have a part 3 now. And Dr. Michelle, you have to be here because obviously you're the negotiator.
Yes, we need Michelle.
I will definitely be here. And if you go onto that freebie list, one of them is top 10 tips for speaker negotiation. So you can download that and get all the tips.
Here we go. I'm going to put it back up again.
And one last comment. I want to acknowledge before I know we're hopping off. Thank you, Lori. I think this was a great comment. She said one idea is to do a freebie for a nonprofit, but then record it professionally. And now you have something to share with prospects. And this goes back to Elaine last week talking about having that professional website. One thing I did not do that I regret was that I was speaking everywhere and never thought to have people record me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so having that I go back and I thought, oh my goodness, if I had just even somebody really today you could bring in a friend with their iPhone and they could probably get at least a couple of good things of you that you could slice and edit together, right? And that could be part of your negotiation. I'll speak for free if you allow me to bring in somebody to record.
Yeah. So I got booked for a speaking engagement last week. And so I asked, are they going to record? And they said, no, not really. And I said, well, can I bring someone in professionally? And they said yes. So I put it in the contract.
Yeah.
To allow me to, but also, I had someone film last year, and as far as I'm concerned, it wasn't a great recording. So I'm going to have to give them a brief, a real brief, and give them some examples so they can visually see the types of shots in terms of the video that I need. Because it was full length. I don't need full length. I need shots from my thigh upwards, close up, and so that I can put captions as I use sound bites to repurpose on certain platforms. So I think you have to write the brief for the video, and you have to give them links to videos on YouTube where you're like, this is the type of shots that I like, that really work well for me, because or else people are they're doing their own thing.
Same thing with photographers, right? They don't know that, like, when you're getting a picture, you also need the audience. You need a shot from behind so that they can really who's in the audience, and they don't know those things necessarily.
Yeah. Well, we should do a session, maybe another one after part 3 of getting your assets together. What should you be doing? What should you be collecting? When I started, I didn't know that. And I've struggled to kind of backtrack because so much of my speaking was pre-COVID and then everything went virtual, right? And so I think having those assets is really important.
Oh, Laurie has given us, thank you, Tara. Laura has given us, I work with a colleague who creates speaker reels at a reasonable price. Then share, Laurie.
Yes. We're all ears.
Obviously, that's something that is really, as Tara said about assets, is the show reel, is the video, is the photographs, those assets, testimonials, referrals, your one sheet, even though I don't really share my one sheet, I share a proposal that breaks down why I'm the best person, what value I can bring, what's the objective of our session. So it's a whole one page just on them. How is this going to benefit you? And then it's my bio. And then it's the keynotes that I deliver. And then it's kind of some terms and conditions as well. She said, no problem at all, ladies. Just ping me on LinkedIn. I'll give you all the information. Thank you. And for those who aren't on LinkedIn and they're like, who is this lady? I want to, have a contact. Her name is Laurie, Laurie, and I'm going to crucify her surname, Schloff, Schloff. And on that note, I think we need to pull in the room because we're usually only going for an hour. But it's been a great subject today, obviously in terms of how to speak in corporate, and coaching is like a byproduct of speaking. If you speak, then you can very easily offer out your coaching. And we've spoken, a lot of it is about relationships. It's having those conversations. It's making yourself a lot more visible, pitching yourself, just getting past your own resistance and reluctance to have conversations with people. Just tell your brain, thank you for sharing, pick up the phone. And it's great when you're in the conversation. It's maybe getting to the conversation that we hold ourselves back. And know that you're of value and you're offering something amazing to people. And, we've also spoke about when you start to get on the call. And I think that will definitely be our next room, about what do you say in those conversations? How can you really pitch yourself? And then we'll speak more about the negotiating the fee, especially if you're starting out, how much will you say, all of that. And then potentially the room after that, we will have, we'll talk about speaker assets. So let me just share our next room, because we have it every second and fourth Friday of the month, is on the 23rd of February. Myself and my fabulous moderators will be there to share with you. So before we all disappear, I'm going to go with Dawn, because Dawn has to go pretty soon. Dawn, what's your words of wisdom to those listening?
Yeah, just really be yourself in the way that you are really trying to pitch yourself. Lean into your strengths, the way that you want to be able to talk about your work, and just build it little by little. But know that it is a long game. So keep these things in mind. Don't get frustrated. Just keep it going. Next thing you know, like a year from now, 2 years from now, things will just start to snowpile. So don't get frustrated. Just start with what you have, where you're at, and it does become incredible. Trust.
Thank you. And thank you for your contribution today, Dawn. And Tara, what say you?
Yeah, I love what Dawn said, because you always think, right? Nobody started playing Major League Baseball. They all started in the Little League, right? They all started at the T-ball. And so sometimes you have to be willing to play T-ball to get to the Major League. But I would say, go back to what we said at the beginning, don't be an undercover speaker. If you're a speaker, everyone should know you're a speaker. You don't ever want anyone to say, oh, I didn't know you do speaking, right? So ask yourself, if I went into your circle right now, if I went into your people, would they tell me, oh yeah, she's a speaker? And if the answer is no, then our challenge is between now and our next session is to make it so that anybody I would ask who knew you would say, oh yeah, no, she's now a speaker.
Thank you. Thank you, Tara. Tara and Dara.
I would say begin with the people you know. A lot of times I hear clients say, but I don't know anybody. Yes, you do. You've gotten to this point in life. Go through the people you went to school with, their college friends, the people you worked with in companies, who's in your family. You know people. We all know people. So you have to start putting yourself out there. It's a little bit of a risk. I always encourage you to take that risk. I'm here to dare you. So go for that dare.
I love that. Thank you. And Dr. Michelle, how about yourself?
So I would say when you start speaking out, you are going to be nervous. Everyone is. And the tendency or the impulse is after you speak to rush out, because you're done. But I would encourage everyone to stay, to talk to people, to, say, I'll be out I'll be in the back of the room if anyone wants to speak to me, because I know some of the best opportunities I've gotten is from someone who heard me speak somewhere else. And then they invited me to be on a committee, to do a keynote. And so all those people in the audience are potential clients. And so if you rush out, they don't know how to contact you. You might, and don't just throw up your email, your contact information in the last moment. So you can't run over time. You need time for, while you're asking questions, all your contact information to be up on a screen so that they can use your freebie, do your QR code, they can contact you. So make sure that you take that last 5-10 minutes to allow them to connect with you, because those may be some of your best clients moving forward.
Yep. Thank you, because it's all about relationships, relationships, relationships. And thank you, Laurie. Laurie said, I wish I could get an accent transplant from you. I could listen to you for hours. So maybe like, hey, how can, I'm always like, now I'm in the US, how can I package, apart from I do say to people, well, you can, they go, I love your accent. I go, well, you can pay for it. You know, it's a keynote. So I do use that, but I'm like, oh, maybe I need to do some voiceover, Dawn. Maybe you're the person I need to talk to about doing some voiceover. I was thinking about
audio books you could record.
Yeah, or doing an app where I can say, good morning, Laurie. How's your day going today? How are you going to be today? Like an app, something like that. But my words, parting words are, you know, treat this like a business, because it is one of the best ways to get in front of your ideal clients very, very quickly. You're already an authority. Even if you're doing it for free, you're still they don't know that, they're the audience, but you are still the one at the front of the room, and people will come to you afterwards. And you have to treat it like a business, which means you have to be consistent. I can't remember who said about in my panel about just doing it consistently is the key, and you will learn as you grow. Put it in your calendars and just spend time having conversations. Look at your network. Ask them a very simple question. Does your corporation, does your company have an annual conference? Look at that. And then they could go, yes, amazing. Tell me more about it. And then they'll tell, have you been? Yes. Could you do an introduction to the person who the event organizer? Can you find out who that is? I've done that a few times. I've done that with strangers in a bar at hotels, because hotels always have conferences. And you can say, oh, what conference are you attending? Oh, is it amazing? And just start up that conversation. Know that you have something of value to share. Somebody is waiting to hear from you. That's why you're listening to this recording. There's no accidents. You are here for a purpose. So myself and my moderators, we are so happy to have been able to serve you and support you today. And obviously the free resource is at the bottom. Please download and keep in contact with whoever you resonate with. And we will see you on the 23rd. Take care, everyone.
Take care, y'all.
Bye-bye.
Bye.